Good morning. This is Karl Schmidt, a retired pastor of Calvary Lutheran Church, on this August 2nd of 2020. It's 8-2-2020, the 8th Sunday of Trinity. This morning started out rainy, and the sky still is cloudy. It's hot and very muggy outside this morning, Western New York. The pandemic is still raging. A lot of places have a lot of trouble because of it. It's a difficult world right now. It's a difficult life for everyone. I can't imagine anyone who looks at this as a time of any fun whatsoever. It's hard to just enjoy a basic day. And in the midst of that, there's the text for today. The text from Matthew, the 7th chapter, verses 15 through 23. Jesus is comparing two different kind of people. Those who do well and those who do not try, do not want to do well, and instead spread mischief and misinformation and lies and nonsense. And so these are the two people Jesus describes. Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 to 23. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and thrown into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? In thy name have we not cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Here ends that portion of the gospel text from the Gospel of Matthew, the 7th chapter, verses 15 through 23. In there is this idea in verse 17, even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit. And so this is this idea of the agathos and kalos in the Greek. Something that is good, something that is nice. And who doesn't like a really nice piece of fruit? And it's a wonderful taste, and it's delicious. Well, you see, that's the kind of thing Jesus is talking about through the use of a figure of speech, a metaphor. He's saying, look, there's good fruit, and then there's fruit that's gone rotten, or it's got bugs in it, or whatever. It's nasty. But the good fruit is something that you desire, something that is nice and healthful, delicious. Well, that's how Jesus is describing life. Those who, as he says in verse 21, those that do the will of his Father which is in heaven. This is the good fruit. This is the thing which is agathos or kalos. This is that they do these things. He uses the word poe in Greek, which is to make or to do. It's something you do with your own hands. The good things are things that people do themselves. And during a time of pandemic, oh, come on, there's so much good that needs to be done. I mean, there's so much opportunity to do well, to do better. And it's incumbent on people who consider themselves to be religious to do well, to do better, not to be a hindrance in this world. I've actually heard during this pandemic people who, at least in my own experience, have called themselves or self-described themselves as Christians, actually say harmful and silly things like, oh, you don't need to wear a mask. Well, that's insane. Of course you wear a mask during a sickness time. Even people hundreds and hundreds of years ago, plague doctors in medieval times wore a mask. It was a weird-looking mask, but still it was a mask because they weren't that stupid. They weren't trying to be harmful to people. How is it that people who self-describe as Christians go and say that masks aren't necessary, and then they don't even wear one? That's not Christian. I'm sorry. If you describe yourself as that, put on a mask when you're outside or when you're around people. Wear a mask. It's a very un-Christian thing to do. It's wicked. It's wrong. And if you describe yourself as Christian and then spout such nonsense. I mean, if you were having surgery, I guarantee you'd want your surgeon to wear a mask rather than cough into your open wound because you would not recover. It's common sense. Anyways, this text is about doing well, to do better. And even though Christians have at times espoused sheer nonsense and stupidity, which is not good, this text is about those who would do well, those who would try to be helpful, those who try to procure masks, those who try to serve others during a time of illness. And I mean, I don't even need to go into the details. Doctors, nurses, therapists, those who do the laundry at a hospital, those who clean, those who pick up, those who provide food. I mean, a hospital's a miniature city. And there's so many types and kinds of people. There's engineers who do the air conditioning and fix the pipes and plumbing. And I mean, a hospital's a city, and yet when there's a plague, working in that city is life-threatening. And many have died. And so Jesus looks in the world of his day, which is still very much like our world. People did silly and foolish and hurtful things, and why? That's why he says this. He wouldn't have to say this if people who thought they were good people did such horrible things. I mean, otherwise, why would he have to say here in verse 17, even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit. He wouldn't have to say it if it was already being done. And that's why he's trying to teach this. You see, he came here to do good for us because we were in jeopardy, a position of jeopardy with God, his Father. And so Jesus came into the world to remedy that, to work things out for us. I mean, that's a discussion way above what I understand. How the Son of God worked things out with his Father. He went to the cross, he died on the cross. Yes, we can see that in stained glass windows. We can describe that. But what does it really mean after working as a pastor, being retired after 35 years? I'll tell you what, I don't understand. I don't know quite what that means. I don't actually know because I haven't been up in heaven. I haven't talked to the Heavenly Father to understand what this all actually means. What is human depravity and stupidity? How is it that this is actually, that the Almighty One, the Heavenly Father, takes note of our minuscule lives, of our petty nonsense and stupidity and cruelty? And even here in the United States, we've had a long history. We've practiced slavery in this country. This country is supposedly for opportunity. Sure, if you're the right person, in the right club or the right financial bracket, sure, plenty of opportunity. But for the poor, for people of color, for women, for children, for so many disadvantaged, it's not a place of opportunity, it's a place of repression. And that's wrong. That's wrong. And so when Jesus talks about good fruit, and those who claim to be godly, claim to be Christian, or claim to have religion, and then to be wicked, that's not the good fruit. Jesus says that's just bad fruit. It's nonsense. He doesn't accept it either. And that's what he tells them at the end. Don't think that God is impressed with that song and dance. He's not. He is not to be played. God says he says don't be deceived. God is not mocked. And as though someone is so stupid to think God would be. God came here to do good for us, kindness for us, to forgive us, to love us, all. And that's the image, that's the idea that Christianity ought to be showing, not just with words, but in deeds. So during a pandemic when there is a lot to do, I have not had a day where there's not an overwhelming amount of things to do, and you can't do things like you used to. I mean, it used to be so easy, just run down the store. Remember those days? Running down the store? Oh my goodness, like that even exists anymore. Half the time the store you want to go to is either shut down permanently or closed, or you're just afraid to go because you're afraid to breathe the air. When was that ever a problem? So, yeah, God came to do good for us. And his idea is that then we do good and do well and do better for each other. Even this country had troubled beginnings. It doesn't mean it has to be like that still. I mean, anyone who glorifies a past of repression and of cruelty is a fool. That's not Christianity. I don't know what that is, but it's something less than a fool. It's horrible. Don't do things like that. That's not good. That's not being the good fruit that Jesus talks about, that's for sure. Instead, do better. A country like ours has a marvelous opportunity to do better each day for so many millions of people. And that's the idea of what Christianity ought to be about in this world, as it's lived by people in their lives. So, anyways, this is, I want to end it here today. It's supposed to be about good fruit, and it would be so nice if I could just say, during this pandemic, Christians stood up and said, wear a mask and purchase masks for others and handed them out. But I've actually heard people who describe themselves as Christians say, don't wear a mask. And I think to myself, what? Who do these people imagine they are? Do they imagine God actually still considers them his people? That's ridiculous. Of course he does not. That is a ridiculous thought, that they would speak harm and disregard for life. Hey, if they were on the surgical table themselves, they would demand their surgeon and the staff wear masks because they don't want someone coughing or spitting accidentally into their wound. They would not recover, they would die. Sure, they would want masks. And then they say, don't wear a mask? It's not helpful? No, the world should be, it should be then the story about Christians buying masks, sacrificing it to get these to people who need them. That hasn't been the story in a lot of places. I'm sorry. Christians, do better. It's appalling, some of the silliness I hear people self-described as Christians saying. Stop that. Plain and simple. Don't do that. Instead, be helpful. Purchase masks. You have resource. If you do, purchase it for others. Hand them out to those who need them. Or whatever else they need. Gloves. Whatever items that they need. Food. Whatever. This is a time of extreme need. Be helpful. That's what Jesus is talking about. So, enough of that. It's discouraging to have to say this, but boy, we need to do better. This has not been a shining time when people who call themselves Christians become troublesome for the world around them. That's shameful. So do better. Be helpful. Be the good fruit that Jesus talks about. I mean, that's a metaphor. It's a figure of speech. I mean, you're not a peach. You're not an apple. But at least you can do something. Do well. Do kindness. Hopefully you can. That would be nice. So, anyways, this has been retired pastor Karl Schmidt from Western New York, Calvary Lutheran Church, imploring Christians to do better. For those of you who are doing well, continue in good works. For those of you who have espoused stupidity and ignorance, willful ignorance especially, and argue about masks, oh, please, don't do that. It saves lives. And it's just simple common sense. It's not an opinion. Even medieval doctors knew that much. And if you're not as smart as people in medieval times, that's not Christianity. Don't think it is. So do well, help others, and be that good fruit that Jesus wants you to be, so that he doesn't look at you with some sort of shame and have to say, as he says in this text, and then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. So, you don't want your brother, Jesus, to look at you and say, I never really knew you. That's horrible. Instead, to believe that God the Father welcomes all people, everyone, everywhere, no exceptions, no lines, no limits, everyone, everywhere, and would want them to know his love, his kindness, his mercy, his forgiveness in the cross of Christ, in the resurrection to life everlasting, and that Christian people, especially in this world, godly people of any description, do well to those around them. Please, don't make trouble in this world and say ignorance. If you say you're godly, then be godly. Well, that's it for today. Take care. Be well. Wear a mask. Help others. It's tough right now. Take care. Bye-bye.